Some time ago, I meant to do this question and answer, but some events happened and I had to put it off until today, about 2 months later. JC asks, what are some ways you know you're definite leads? I guess for me, I just get a really good feeling and a motivation to do something, and I'll often get a glimpse of my wish fulfilled. And when I take the action, it generally feels very joyful, easy, like you just have this feeling it's right. Ash asks me, do I watch anime? I actually don't. You Attract Money asks, why Japanese guys are shy or too quiet? Is there any tips to get closer? I remember when I met my Japanese husband, when he was just my long-distance boyfriend, when we met for the first time in New York City, and I remember one of the first things he said was to look away from me and say he felt really shy. And I just acted relaxed and said, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it. Let's go get something to eat. And then he kissed me. So I feel like when he realized all my attention was not on him, but my other love, I feel like that kind of helped him relax. But in general, I think Japanese men, many can be shy. I think because, at least the older generation, they grew up with a lot more pressures, including to fit in, not stand out. So learning to express themselves, especially in a foreign language, they can be a little tough on themselves. And also for the same reason, I think Japanese people tend to be more quiet. But of the younger generation, especially those who've been westernized in the US, or any Western country, for an extensive amount of time, I think you'll find they're a bit more Americanized and it's easier to relate. To get closer, I would look to clubs where Japanese mix with foreigners. It could be an exchange of some sort, language exchange. Or online, you could look for places where people want to do a language exchange, like Hello Talk. And if you're in real life to get closer, I would say go to the Japanese version of an izakaya and have a beer or two. Izakaya is kind of like a big part of Japanese culture for many people, and people tend to cut loose. And if this is someone you're just online with that you want to get closer, I would just say take it slow and just get to know them. And especially when you have common interests or you share things about your life that interest them, they'll naturally start to open up. Of course, you can go right into imagination and not worry about any of this and just how would it feel if you had a Japanese friend or boyfriend or hubby who felt comfortable around you and liked to talk with you, that feeling. And I realized I almost just missed this comment, and I'm sorry if I missed any other comments. And I'm very thankful for all the kind comments, and if there's anything I missed, sorry. And some things I might not address here, but I have noted them for future videos. And for some reason, I almost missed this comment. So Vinny asks, are men really not dating or having sex in Japan? I have heard there are some chunks of the population that don't date and don't have sex. I've also heard sometimes when a Japanese couple marries, the woman is very hands-on with the child and sometimes the marriage becomes sexless. But I've also heard husbands sometimes go out and enjoy other kinds of services to take care of their needs. And that's one of the reasons you have love hotels all over big cities, where you can just rent a hotel room for a few hours. But I do think a lot of Japanese still do have healthy sex lives. Not sure I'm pronouncing this right, but Arti asks, hey, can you tell me, what would you do if you wanted to get your desired height? Well, I would determine what height I do want to be if I'm not already that. And then as I drift off to sleep, I would just ask myself, how would it feel if I was a height I wanted to be? And then enjoying that feeling, I would ask myself, who is most likely to say something about my new height? Maybe for me it would be my husband. So then I might imagine him saying, did you grow taller? Let's measure you. And then him measuring my height and saying I'm the height that he thought I should be. So you just have to find what scene feels natural and feels best to you. And then you can repeat it several times until it feels real, and then drift off to sleep. Sona asks, what were your nationality before marriage? American. Japanese American, but born in America. Asma asks, I want to move to China to reunite with my husband. Trying to do it for 8 months now. Please guide me how I can convince myself that it will happen despite all odds. Well, that's kind of what happened to me. I wasn't even married at the time, and I was going to go to trial live with my hubby to see how it went. Since we only knew each other online, for some months and had only met for 1 week in New York City. But the borders closed, and they never opened again for over 2 years. But fortunately, I didn't have to wait for 2 years. After half a year or so, I really got the feeling that I wanted to be there with him and take the chance on marrying. So I bought a cheap but realistic-looking wedding ring, and I wore it feeling I was married. And I bought a little body pillow, and I would sleep to it next to me, imagining it was my husband's body and we were in Japan. And then one thing led to another, a way was made. It felt natural to take, and everything flowed, and then I was able to come to Japan. And I'm glad I followed it, because while here, a whole nother year passed, and the borders still were closed. Just now, in June of 2022, they're starting to let small groups come in, but only as part of a guided tour. So I did this for months, and we said to each other, no matter how long it takes, we'll keep trying. Kasia asks, show us your place. Where do you live, I wonder? Town, house, village? Do you have any pets? So I'll try to get some footage of that and add that along with this question. And no, I don't have any pets. But one day I think I might get a little dog, a Shiba Inu. Maybe what they call a Mame Shiba Inu, miniature Shiba Inu. Lux asks, how to get in the state of extremely healthy, happy, wealthy, successful, and powerful CEO and investor with worldwide recognition? Well, simply ask yourself the question, how would it feel if you were all these things? If you were these things, how would it feel? And in doing so, you're in the state. It's especially easier to do and more penetrating when you do it when you're a little bit sleepy or at least relaxed. For some, that's right before they go to bed, and for others, it's when they wake up. And for some people, it's in the middle of the day or evening if they go for a walk or a bike ride. Often nature can kind of have that effect on us. And just letting yourself kind of get in a daydreamy state and asking yourself the right questions. And for some, taking it further, having a little daydream. If you were this person, what is something you'd be doing? Would you be sitting in some kind of office? Would you have a grand office at your home? Would you be taking phone calls from your home office? Or would you have a grand office in some grand building? Would you have staff who'd be waiting upon you? So immerse yourself, especially in those times when you're sleepy, and persist however long it takes, whether it's 6 months, or sometimes for people it takes years. But it might not, so you might as well imagine now. And Basques asks, did I meet my husband online? How is life in Japan comparing to US? I did meet him online initially, and then after some months we met in real life in New York City for 1 week. I love life in Japan. Summers are a little intense, but I'm sorting that out in imagination. I'm crazy about the food here. I feel like I'm in food heaven. There's so much delicious food that tastes as good as it looks, and so much of it is so cheap, and yet it tastes high quality and fresh and wonderful. I'm in food heaven. Abraham asks, Lila, can you hear for others, if cannot hear the good news for themselves? Of course, that's a wonderful way to manifest, not only for others, but indirectly it boomerangs back to you and brings goodness. So sometimes if people are having trouble manifesting for themselves, Neville occasionally taught to manifest the same thing for someone else, or if someone else wants similar, to manifest for them, to feel abundance all around. Because we're all connected, like when you go to bed at night and you have a dream. You might dream of all kinds of people, but they all come from your own consciousness. When you wake up, it all dissolves back into you. But in some way, mystics say, what we call reality is a wake dream. A dream of life, just longer, so it takes on the tones of reality. Gloria asks, how long did you communicate online with your husband before you met him in person? Probably 4 or 5 months. Do you live in his apartment, or did you both get a new apartment after you married? We got a new apartment. He had lived with his mom before. Nice Material asks, in what region of the US, or maybe Canada, did you grow up? The way you pronounce T's in the middle of words or phrases makes me especially curious. It's almost British, as you don't say the T in many instances. I don't? I grew up in upstate New York, near the capital of New York, Albany. Maybe because I also grew up with a foreign mother, who speaks just about native English, but I think she still has a little bit of an accent. I love you all. Lila asks, can you talk about how you changed your financial situation? Well, pre-Neville, most of my childhood, my mom was very hot-tempered and violent. So once I became of age, I lived with different boyfriends on and off and pretty much relied on them. And I lived below the poverty line for most of my life. And then I got into YouTube just for the joy of it, mostly for myself. Didn't even think of monetizing. It was a viewer who said after a year, Ibuka, Luigi, recommended that I monetize. And then that started to help me gain independence. And then nearly half a decade later, some viewers asked me to read Florence Shin. I checked her out, liked her books a lot, so I read them here. And that just blew up and brought lots of abundance my way. And it allowed me to be able to go to Japan and to be able to support my hubby and I. And then just different ideas and opportunities are always abounding in my consciousness. Some of the things I did, which I felt had a great effect, were imagining just wealth waterfalling down upon me. I just did it for fun and it felt wonderful, and I just let it go. And I felt around that period, things started to take a more dramatic turn. Hello, the wandering artists. Is it possible to manifest an SP online? I'm an introvert, so I'd like to know them online first, and then get comfy dating them in real. And for those asking for Tokyo Tower or also Sakura, I actually did get to show those places on some recent videos I posted online on this channel. Well, I did exactly everything that you said, and I'm also an introvert. So, if you can imagine it, it's possible. For me, just for fun, I joined an online dating site just to see what was there. But I mostly spent the time working on myself, and then things just kind of developed on the side. But I've also had friends who met online, like in language exchange sites. And they met and married, and they're happy now. How would it feel? How would it feel if you met your SP online? How would it feel to be sitting there right now with your SP, to be dating and to feel completely comfortable with each other? That feeling? Take that mood into your sleep. Imagine them next to you. If you need, you can get a prop like a body pillow. And imagine feeling them beside you as you drift off to sleep. And enjoy this little practice until you know it will be so, or it is so. QDBJH. Your skincare routine or affirmations. Well, actually, my skincare is very minimalistic. Most days I just take a shower, and I'll just use whatever halfway decent cleanser it varies, and in the colder months, just slap on some moisturizer. I'll air some footage of some of the products I'm using now. But honestly, recently I tried an expensive skincare line a friend recommended, but to be honest, I think it's kind of overrated. And also, a little secret, what makes the skin extra nice is using a beauty filter, like that comes naturally on apps like Meitu. As for affirmations, I just sometimes put it under an umbrella of I am perfectly healthy, beautiful, youthful, ageless, and so forth. And Bud writes, I wanted you to go more in depth in the process for manifesting the love of your life, specific scenes, how long it took, bridge of incidents, etc. And what methods of Neville did you use? Congratulatory conversations, for example. Well, Neville's influenced me a lot, but I've probably tinkered around with various things. But the things that stand out the most to me, I would just see an example of what I wanted. In this particular case, I was watching YouTubers, Texan and Tokyo, but they don't make videos anymore. And they just had such a sweet relationship. And I wanted that for myself, but someone right for me. So I enjoyed watching their different videos and I got the feel of them. And then I remembered Neville's techniques. And I would just imagine having my own version next to me and just have imaginary conversations with him. And I did this a handful of times here and there as I remembered to, as it felt good to. And as I did it, I really did lose myself in a moment. I had nothing to lose, and my mood was in the right place, so I just had fun with it. It's like if you practice, you can kind of develop your acting skills and even lose yourself in it. Same way when you watch actors on TV and you forget you're watching a TV show or movie. You can do the same thing when you do your own little productions in a movie in your mind. I actually prefer to do things out loud, even speaking out both parts. And most people do this. They just might not be aware of the little conversations and stuff that go on in their head all day long. So my bridge of incidents was the first time I did it, imagining, just like the couple in the YouTube, having a nice Japanese boyfriend. I did have a nice Japanese boyfriend, but after a year, it just wasn't meant to be with that one. So I worked on myself, and I had more imaginary conversations, but especially I worked on myself. That time, it really helped me to listen to Joe Dispenza's meditations. So along with some other things on the side, which I've already talked about, involving props and stuff, it was the imaginary conversations. And I just did those any time of the day I felt drawn to. So find couples who are to reflect the energy that you like, that you'd want for yourself, and feed off that. So then when you go to play an imagination, you can use that energy, those dynamics, and imagine your own scene. And the more you practice, it will become more easier and fun. But if it's hard for you to imagine, I still recommend you try to develop that imaginal muscle by exercising it. You can do something that I also did, and that is when I first met my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband, I was super duper shy. I even tried to cancel it. I didn't want to meet him because of the shyness. But in imagining that we were together and having a good time, that helped. And what helped even more is I would go to something like Google Images, and I would find all kinds of pictures of couples and paint a story of how we met at a hotel, and I'd get a picture of a couple meeting at a hotel that just oozed the energy that I wanted to manifest. And then I'd Google an image of a couple having a wonderful romantic dinner, especially like, say, in New York City, and other things, even naughty things. And then I would combine these all in some free video editor on the phone, and I'd add some music that really touched my heart. And I would watch this at least once most days. The pictures in combination with the music just brought me so much joy. I think sometimes I also put a voiceover. I talked a little bit quiet, and I said all the things that I would want him to say to me. And sometimes I would record my own voice, telling a friend what a wonderful time we had. And so much of it, almost to a T, manifested. And just like Neville said, it felt so natural, I thought maybe it would have anyways, even without the mind movie. But I think sometimes when you have trouble imagining, if you can see photos that give you that mood, that can also do it. And Kay asks, are your parents Japanese, but you lived in the USA? Only my mother's Asian, my father's Caucasian. My mother was born in Tokyo, Japan, and my father was born in New York City. And your assumption's right. I like to think I'm a good cook too. As my husband often says, oishii after I cook meals, which means delicious. And also eating Japanese food made me feel closer to my dream of being married to my Japanese boyfriend at the time and being able to live in Japan. And you certainly can use the same method to get to Korea as I did to get to Japan. Yeah, that's another thing I did sometimes to get to a country. Whether it be France or Japan, when it didn't seem possible, I would sometimes buy products from those countries, like in France it was certain wine, or Japan, I would buy certain little snack boxes. So it's funny now that I get to sponsor a snack box, because that was one of the ways I actually used to get to Japan, as well as other things like drinking Japanese plum wine and eating other various Japanese foods. And this would make a great time now to give a shout out to a Japanese company who was one of my first sponsors for this channel. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Tokyo Treats and their sister company Sakura Co. I recently got to try out their monthly subscription snack treat boxes, and I thought they were awesome. Tokyo Treats features a lot more pop culture snacks, and the sister company Sakura Co. features more traditional Japanese snacks and usually has some type of a unique little kitchen item included. So if you're interested in trying out an array of unique Japanese snacks, please check out my affiliate link in the description section beneath this video or the pinned comment to get $5 off your first box. Thank you. And Mystic Sapphire asks, I would like to know how you manifested your desires in your life, what method you applied, if it's not too personal to share, and if you feel comfortable sharing it. Also, all the things you remind yourself or do to maintain your wanted desires to manifest. That would be great help. So I've already talked about a lot of this, so let me see if there's anything else I can add. I would just say, reading a little bit of Neville or taking down my favorite quotes and other similar mystics, and keeping myself immersed in such teachings, especially the things that they said that really touched my heart, my soul. And that inspired me then to put more of what they taught into practice. To be honest, I never really was too good of taking a mood into sleep, because I used to like to stay up late, and by the time I went to bed, I wanted to go right to sleep. But imaginary conversations, I'd say, came up a lot in my different successes, and oftentimes just having them here and there. And there are certain times of the day that are like the sweet spot, and it wasn't always what mystics taught, like right when you go to bed or when you wake up. Because before all this manifested, when I'd wake up, it was often late, like in the afternoon, and I had to get up and going and doing things. But once you start to get enough success and have some discipline, then you find those really are very poignant times. But it goes to say that you can still manifest quite a bit, even just doing it throughout the day. Maybe just before dinner or after dinner, there was a sweet spot where I had some time to myself. So I would just take a break from life and just sit back when I had some alone time. And it seemed like a good time to have a little imaginary conversation or two. Sometimes you might not just feel to manifest at all, so sometimes I went through phases where I didn't, until that hunger comes back again and you really want something. Sometimes something triggers you. So even when that happens, you get triggered and you get upset, it can actually be really beneficial because it gives you that fire to more go after what you want. Because when things are going okay, sometimes you don't quite have that fire, that hunger. So whatever comes, welcome it, because it will help give you the launch pad from where you are to wherever you want to be. Sometimes you don't see the bigger picture. And what helped me maintain my desires? I think what helped make me keep the Japanese dream and marriage alive, when I was in the US, I would watch Netflix and sometimes Amazon Prime. They sometimes had really sweet little love stories that took place in Japan. So I would lose myself in those, and I would feel to me and my love. And also having the YouTube channel and regularly keeping my feet immersed in other people's success stories and the ways they did it and their take on Neville and other mystics. That's what helped me. Open-minded, open-hearted purple bird. My questions are, did you live in America or Canada or somewhere else before moving to Japan? I lived in upstate New York all my life. Would you and your husband ever travel to USA, Canada, or anywhere else? One day I'd like to bring them back to the USA, especially to meet my parents. As for would I like to travel anywhere else, I love the Mediterranean, the bright blue ocean, the warm sunny summers, although I heard in the Mediterranean it can get very hot. But I'll do my best to fix that in imagination. I'd like to see places like Sardinia, the island just off of Italy, and there's another place that seems really magical, Crete. Dark Passenger 54 says, can you read more audiobooks, and what further advice can you give when using It Works to manifest better? Well, now that I have better equipment and I'm learning how to use it, I'd like to re-record, with better production, Florence as well as some of the Neville Goddard books. And I'd probably like to put that up on something like Amazon Audibles or similar. Time to time, I might put some books or extended lectures on my Nevillution 2 alternate YouTube channel. It Works is something I'm still incorporating, but I feel to do it kind of my own way and see what results come, and depending how that goes, I'm also willing to do it the way it was instructed. And the only tip I would give is maybe nebulize it. If you make your list and you read it 3 times a day, maybe the first time, let's say when you wake up in the morning, before or after breakfast, maybe you just read the list. Reading the list actually can be very potent. People can write down anything on there. It might be perfect health, 100 million net USD wealth, a hot and steamy marriage, whatever it might be. Sometimes when you just read a list and you don't try to put anything on it like, I am happily married, it helps get past the resistance. So just list the qualities that you want and read them to yourself or out loud. I prefer to read things out loud. And maybe the second time in the day, for me, that might be when I exercise and I'm doing cardio equipment. I like to record imaginary conversations, whether things I'm telling someone or something I wish someone would say to me. And I have my favorite music playing behind it. And it's based on the initial list. Or you could just read the list again. That was the original instructions. And at nighttime, you could literally just follow the directions and read the list before you go to bed to impress the subconscious when it's most impressionable. But I like to nebulize it and intentionally daydream and take that mood into sleep. That's what I would say. Either really try to do it as it was instructed or nebulize it. Bring in the teachings of Neville Goddard. See what works for you. And I'd say it'd be fair to maybe give it at least 6 months. But even well within a month or so, you're likely to see some of the things on your list already succeed. Silent poetry. Yes, I'd love to vlog one of the matsuris, the festivals in Japan. I keep telling my hubby whenever one happens, take me, and I'll take you. I'll take you all. What is life like being married in Japan? I think it's lovely. Sometimes it had a little bit of its challenges, when due to cultural differences we kind of have some misunderstandings, but that's natural. I'd already seen different YouTubers who talked about some of their experiences when they first got together. But for me, I was already prepared for it because I used to watch a lot of YouTube couples in mixed marriages, especially an American with a Japanese. But my husband, on the other hand, didn't watch such, didn't date much. So initially, when there were some misunderstandings, he thought we were doomed. And I won't deny, there were a few times I wondered, do I revise this vessel or do I make a new one? Sometimes I wondered, if Neville had knew the law when he first married when he was 18, would he have tried to revise his first marriage? But his second marriage was so heavenly, so it worked out perfect. And so much of the time, I feel heavenly in our marriage. And when challenges come up, I look at them as opportunities to practice the imaginal arts, to build the imaginal muscle. Because I think how amazing it is that I'm here, that we've been together already a year and there's so many happy times and memories. And as Florence says, I look with wonder at all the more wonderful dreams I'm manifesting. As for Japanese culture, I'm learning it myself and sharing it in my videos as I go so we can learn together. Sunshine Surfs Up 1 asks, about Japan. If I were to move there, where might I want to review? I love a sunny coastline with warm temps. Thank you. I think I would check out Fukuoka if I were you. It's the southernmost part of Japan. You could check out Okinawa. It's like Japan's Hawaii. And in the summer, it's not only very hot, but very humid. But so is most of Japan, so if you don't mind that. And if anybody else has any recommendations, please let Sunshine Surfs Up know. I'm still discovering Japan myself. Shannon asks, I would like to know how you combat worry, fear, and doubt. And I'm a huge Hello Kitty fan. If you see anything in your travels around Japan, could you share? I'll keep my eyes out for you, Shannon. So how do I deal with worry, fear, and doubt? Because I used to indulge in them so much, I would have panic attacks. I used to be so drawn to the most extreme horror movies, and then but that kind of influenced my real life, and I would see how I'd see the darkness and get off on adrenaline things to feel alive, and now look at the harvest in the world. So the best way I deal with worry, fear, and doubt are to read the words of the mystics, the one that touched me the most. From Nisargadatta Maharaj, sometimes to Eckhart Tolle, who had a great spiritual awakening from such great inner suffering, and of course to mystics such as Neville Goddard, Florence Shin, and so forth. Reading their words, I feel our energies penetrate, and it feeds me, helps remind me of just what we are, our potential, and about taking back the power and using more discretion, and what we do with this great gift of awareness that can choose what it attaches to, what it immerses itself with, be it thoughts or the harvests on the outside, from people to TV and movies and social media. Is that what you want to perpetuate? If not, put your attention on things you do want to perpetuate. And if you've made a habit of indulging in things that you don't want to perpetuate, then sometimes you got to get creative and make the effort to find the things that bring you noble feelings of peace and joy. Lovely books, lovely movies, lovely people, lovely art, lovely music, and so forth. Norhain, sorry if I mispronounced that, I adore to show more of Japan. And you also ask, when manifesting your man life now, did you let divine guidance guide you, or you focused on a specific person? Also, how often do you do it? I mean visualization and being in the desired state. Initially, it wasn't a specific person. I just saw a couple on YouTube, as I said earlier in this recording, and every now and then, maybe once a day for a few weeks, I would just imagine having my own conversation out loud with someone like that, and I would play his role too, and we'd giggle back and forth and feel such a comfort with each other. And then once that person came into my life, and I felt this is the one I want to marry, I used all kinds of things, but especially props, to feel the reality of being married, from wearing a ring to sleeping with a big body pillow and imagining it's my hubby and that we're in Japan and happily married. So I would do something like that many a nights. I can't say every night, but many a nights. That was easy enough to do. Just imagine for a moment I'm in someone's arms or they're in my arms. And I would also change the screensaver on my phone and my computer so it was someplace in Japan. And sometimes when I'd see it, I'd imagine I was there. Maybe it could have been the airport or some beautiful seaside resort like Atami that I wanted to visit. USB Studio One asks, what according to you are 3 essential tips based on your personal experience and from teachings of Neville and Florence that one should follow in terms of getting into growth mindset for wealth and prosperity? Besides what most people already know, what 3 tips would I suggest to you and to all? And these are things I'm still developing as well. I'd say the first tip is to help make this living in your life. Like for me, having the YouTube channel, especially around this certain niche, helped keep the teachings alive in my life, even if I took breaks here and there. So find some way to keep the teachings alive. Maybe some way you're sharing the teachings to others, where you feel accountable because you update how things are going in your own life, but also helping others will help you. So it might be YouTube, or you might be on a different platform, something that suits you even better. 2, I would say, use the things that appeal to you. Don't take anyone's word as the only way. Like I know sometimes people in the Neville community will say, oh, Neville didn't teach that way, so you can't do it. You should do it only this way. Whatever their interpretation of Neville's words were. Who knows if Neville was alive today, how maybe he would have transformed what he taught before. So be willing to test out what you're being taught, but don't be afraid to experiment and to take breaks even sometimes. Because sometimes then that gives you the hunger, the energy to come back even stronger, even if those breaks seem sometimes kind of extended. Sometimes we really do need to have some peace in our life to just be free of desire and manifesting. That in that peace our true desires and intuition can come through to guide us what might be the best way to get what we want, or simply the best way to just allow. And a third thing I'd say is write down what you want and let the list be liquid. Sometimes you might want to rewrite it or revise parts of it. So you can also kind of keep track of your successes. S. Pemo, what's your lifestyle as someone teaching and practicing the law married to someone who's unaware of it? Also, do you speak Japanese? Or you and your husband communicate in English? And lots of love right back to you in the Middle East. I speak a little bit of Japanese, but we mostly communicate in English. I think my life is a balance between being disciplined and also being free-flowing, and it took some while to kind of find that balance. I do the married kind of like things a couple does, especially close together with my hubby, waking and having breakfast, and then space to do the arts or whatever, or just be, then having lunch, and then continuing that life's work. And then usually we work out, and then we have dinner, and then he likes to watch TV, and sometimes I'll watch it with him, or I'll do YouTube things like this. and then going to bed, and of course weekends, holidays, and vacations, going out and eating at different kinds of restaurants and doing some shopping together. And time to time going on vacation somewhere in Japan. That's my life, basically. As for being someone who's not aware of it, in fact, sometimes when I talk about my dreams, he'll even laugh and mock them. So that kind of surprised me, because I wondered, well, what is that reflecting in consciousness? That seems so rude. But then also it shows me, where am I? Because when I was 18, I probably would have went into a rage attack. But it shows me I've mellowed in time, and instead of blaming, sometimes it's easy to pass the buck, as Neville taught don't do, I'll try to bring it back and see, well, what inside me, because as Neville teaches, there's nothing but self, all is consciousness. But I don't try to worry too much about where the seed was planted, but instead, where do I want to go with it? How do I feel the eternal profound peace and bliss beyond words that many mystics talk about finding? Then nothing then can shake you. So those moments give me the fire of a great desire to find my heaven within and let it blossom without. E, the real deal. I actually haven't seen any Zen gardens. I'm not even sure I've seen any foot reflexology paths yet. And I hope you've seen the sakura, the cherry blossom trees I've showed in some of the previous videos on the channel. You ask, when you imagined being married, did you wear the wedding band and engagement ring? I actually did wear the wedding band and the engagement ring. But I ended up getting from him a wedding band that had a little diamond in it. So I would wear 2 rings, but in the end, it was 1 ring we settled on. We were thinking about having both rings, but we settled on the 1 ring, because he came from a background where many Japanese men don't even wear a ring, and they don't always give a ring to the wife, and Japanese women don't always wear a ring either. So I tried to blend everything together to make a win-win. It wasn't that important to me to wear 2 rings, but I at least wanted 1. Most of my life, I preferred not to wear much jewelry at all. Oton, I hope I said that right. I would love to know, do you think people had more success during Neville Goddard's time because there were no social media and Netflix and tons of distractions like today, or something entirely different? Well, on one hand, I think it may have seemed there was more success during his time. But when Neville's teaching, there was probably around 3 billion people, while today, I think there's almost 8 billion people. So more than double, could even end up being triple. And I think in Neville's time, the majority weren't into these kind of things like they are today. I think things like manifesting, law of attraction reach a more broader audience today. In Neville being a teacher, he's going to be able to share a lot more success stories. Today it seems we don't quite have someone like Neville or Florence, but it seems a little more diluted, like there are various teachers who pop up, often sharing the teachings of these great mystics, but in their own way. So I don't know if there were more success stories, or it's just we're reading Neville's body of work and he's including the greatest success stories he encountered. Because if you do look online, there are a lot of wonderful success stories, but it seems they're more scattered, and then you have to find them mixed in with all the other people who might still be struggling to find their own success stories. But definitely it does seem we have so many more things that can distract us today. But even in Neville's times, they had things too, like wars and famines. But then again, every day we're manifesting, it's just unintentional. But if you look around in forums and stuff, you'll find also great miracles. It's just I think there's a lot more people, so sometimes those success stories get buried. Divina says, I heard in one of your videos you said you can almost pass for full Japanese. I thought you were. What is your nationality? My nationality is American. Half Japanese, Irish American. Margot asks, what was for you really helpful to get in the state of being married? Did you actively seek out a partner, or did it all happen naturally? And I already did kind of have a similar question and answer that. As I said, I think having tools and props helped the most. Wearing a ring and imagining I was married, and having a body pillow to sleep next to in the night, imagining that it was my hubby next to me. I did feel inspired to make the initial actions to join a dating site. Actually, when I saw his profile, I didn't write to him. I passed over it. He didn't say much in his profile, so something about him I didn't feel drawn to. It was he who wrote me. And we did add each other to a messenger, but I really didn't pursue him. I would just answer him politely, but he wrote each day. So then after some months, he grew on me. And then after that, everything pretty much happened naturally. I felt like it was just flowing through me. Even though it took a bunch of months, almost a year, it just all seemed to glide in place. Tea Time Conscious. I have a question about you. What are the things you love doing besides being with your hubby and practicing the law, of course? Do you enjoy gardening or painting or listening to music? What are the joyful things you use as tools to keep up your spirit for manifestation? I'm working on world peace right now, and I've tried to stay away from the news as much as possible. Thank you so much, and love and light to you in Finland as well. Well, as many of you know, other things I love to do are to eat, especially going to different restaurants, pastries, coffee shops, and also shopping, especially at cute places like Daiso, Japan's version of the dollar store, or Don Quixote. I guess that would be their version of Walmart, but it totally kicks butt. Other things I like to do are music. I haven't done it lately, but I'd like to get back into that. I have a guitar I haven't touched since I got here, so I'd like to get back into that. I don't really do gardening, but who knows, one day. And the different joyful things I do to keep manifesting alive, well, I've said a lot of it throughout this video. To recapitulate, I like to use imaginary conversations, especially recording them and setting them to music that profoundly moves me, and listening to them as I walk on a treadmill, imagining that they're really happening. And lately, I've become more disciplined and really like to take the mood into sleep, but I took a little bit of a hiatus, or quite a long one, as I simply just start to be and enjoy life, and to become more clear what I really want. And now I feel very excited to take those feelings of those wishes fulfilled into sleep each night, and excited to wake up and read my list, knowing that I'm doing the good work and the seeds are being planted, nourished, and excited for the harvests that have already showed up in my life, are showing up now and will continue to. And a handful I accidentally missed, and sorry if I missed any other ones on my double check. Chapter 4-4 as well as Courtney. Where did I grow up? Upstate New York. ND asks, where does my universal accent come from? Upstate New York. Having a half-Japanese mother. And what do I do for a living? YouTube. But I'm also venturing in audiobook narration. And Duncan Price, one other person asked to see different areas of my place, so that's also for you. Olive Ostrich, yes, it's really me. So thank you all so much for so many lovely comments you left me, and thank you all for your questions and for being here, supporting this channel. Thank you.